Hey guys, it's BearBros here, and today I'm going to be showing you a Jungleman video. In this series I basically explain to you how to jungle with unconventional junglers, which means that either they're just not played that much anymore, or they weren't designed to be junglers in the first place. So in this episode we have Jarvan the Fourth, also known as Jarvan, who's an extremely fun champion to play with because of his high CC abilities. And yeah, he's kind of gone out of fashion recently. I haven't seen him in any games, to be honest. He used to be played as quite a lot as solo top, but yeah, in this one I'll be showing you how to jungle with him efficiently. Alright, so I'm going to be starting off by explaining his different abilities. So first up you've got his E, which is kind of his main ability that you'll be using most of the time for ganking and jungling. So you've got a passive on this ability, which basically makes him gain a set amount of bonus attack speed and bonus armor. And he's got the active of the ability, in which he throws down a flag which does area of effect damage to the nearby areas that are affected. So this does a set amount of damage, scales off AP, and in addition to that it grants the allied champions near this flag the passive of Demacian Standard. And on top of that, if Jarvan the Fourth is close to the flag once it's been put down, then he'll have the doubled effect of his passive of the Demacian Standard. So I'll just show you what it looks like right here. So you place it anywhere in this quite large radius, and it will be sent down as such. So once it's down, it will stand there for 8 seconds, and then it will disappear, and you'll have to wait for the short cooldown to go down before you can use it again. Alright, so next up we've got his Q, called Dragon Strike, and so what he does in this one is he throws out his lance, which does a set amount of damage, scales off AD, and in addition to that it lowers the armor of all enemies hit for 10% for 3 seconds. In addition to that, it has a type of passive which is extremely useful, which is that once you've thrown down your flag like this and you Q onto it, then Jarvan will be attracted to this point, and all the enemies, so anything from a jungling creep to an enemy champion, will be knocked up into the air and be able to basically own him. So this is also quite useful for warding areas, because, like, for example, this area here is supposed to be shadowed, but if you put down your flag, then you can see what's actually there, and then if you want, you can also, you know, go there to start jungling, etc. Alright, so his next ability that I'm going to be covering is his W, which is called Golden Aegis. It's basically a shield that protects him for a set amount of health, which goes up for each point that you put in it, obviously, and this stacks for each nearby enemy champion, so this can be quite a helpful little bonus when you're in team fights, so obviously when there's all 5 of the enemy champions there. So this lasts for 5 seconds, and in addition to that you've got a slow that slows enemies around him for 15%. Well, that's 15% at level 1, but goes up later, for a short period of time. So this ability is kind of useless. I mean, you don't really use it that much. I mean, you've already got your armor bonus on your E, so you don't really need an extra thing, but it can be kind of useful. But the main reason why I'd say you'd use this ability is for when you're getting like chased in a team fight or whatever. The slow comes in quite handy. Okay, so next up I've got his ultimate, in which he basically leaps to a champion, so it can't be minions, it can only be a champion, and he does a set amount of damage which scales off AD, and creates a type of barrier, kind of like Veigar's barrier, except it doesn't stun them, it just keeps them trapped in there for a certain amount of time, and after this time has collapsed, then the barrier will collapse as well, and you can also click on the R ability, sorry, to collapse it like automatically, so you don't have to wait for that set amount of time to go down before it collapses automatically. You can do it yourself. So this ability is really useful because obviously it has a high CC, you know, it's a high CC ability, and on its own it doesn't really do that much, but I'll show you here. Basically, you leap onto an enemy champion. If he runs away, he can't. And on its own it's not all that useful, but if you combine it with your other abilities, you can then stun them, and then, you know, it almost always provides a kill, and it's really useful for team fights. Alright, so last but not least, we've got his passive called Martial Cadence. I don't know how you pronounce it, but basically what it does is that it deals 6% of the enemy's current health as bonus physical damage. So this is a maximum of 400 damage. So this is really useful for when you gank, because you can, for example, use your E, use your Q, and then the first physical attack damage you'll be doing on the enemy that you're ganking will have an added effect. Alright, so to gank with Jarvan, go into a lane, start up with your shields or your W, then you want to E and Q. Now the reason why you don't want to E and Q first up is because if they flash then they can easily escape, and then if you have your ultimate, use that. Alright, so now I'm going to be moving on to Jarvan's build. So straight up you're going to want to go and buy yourself some cloth armor and 5 health potions. Now I know the downside to this is that your movement speed will be really slow. You'll have like 320 if you take the right masteries. So that's very slow, but I think that normally your E and your Q should be enough. But if you really feel the need to have extra movement speed, then I'd go with boots instead. So yeah, you're going to want to get the cloth armor 5 potions, then build that slowly into a Midrid's, Razors, and then Wriggle's Lantern, and then obviously buy your Boots of Speed, and then finally your Mercury Treads. Then after that I'd advise you to go with Heart of Gold. So I'd go with Heart of Gold before Phage, because obviously you get additional 5 gold every 10 seconds, which means that if you get it before, this will make you gain more money in the long term. So then you get Phage, and then I'd advise you building it into Frozen Mallet. You can build it into Trinity Force if you want, that's not too bad with him, but I'd say Frozen Mallet is probably better for the way I play him anyway. And then your Heart of Gold, you're going to be wanting to turn it into a Randuin's Omen. And then for the other 2 items, it's really up to you. What I like to get with him, I know it's a bit weird, is, where is it? The Shirelia's Reverie. So if you have Shirelia's Reverie, and you have Randuin's Omen, and you have your ultimate and all that, then, I mean, there's no way that the enemies will ever be able to get away from you. And as a last item, I'd go with Atma's Impaler. Alright, so next up we've got his Masteries and Runes. So for the Masteries I'd advise this 9-21-0 setup. You can pause the video if you want to check out exactly which ones I chose. And for the runes I'd go with the classic AD/armor and magic resistance runes. So you're going to want to get Greater Mark of Desolation, Greater Seal of Resilience, Greater Quintessence of Strength, and Greater Glimpse of Shielding. Alright, so moving on to jungle paths, I'd only really advise one jungle path, which is where you start wolves here. So once you see the 140 mark hit, you put your E down and you start attacking them. Now ideally you'd have the mid or either the top or bot lane to help you out so that they can pull it, but you can easily manage without. I mean, if they're lazy and they just want to pull the blue buff, then that's fine. So yeah, just finish those up quickly, and then once you've done that, you go over to blue buff, maybe drink a health pot or 2, and then, you know, just start doing that, and it's as simple as that. So once you've done that, I'd advise you to either gank top lane here, or bot lane if you're on the other side, or mid. But another thing that you can do that I've really had a tendency to do recently is you wait in the red bush right here for the enemy jungler to come and take it, and then you like ask top lane or mid lane to help you out, and then you can get a free kill and red buff there that way. But if you want to play it really safe, then after blue buff you can go over to raise, red, golems, raise, and then gank like a normal jungle path really. So yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to be moving on to the last part of the video, where I tell you guys what I think Jarvan's main pros and cons are. So first up we've got his pros. So I think he has a great CC potential. So obviously he's got the combo off of his E and Q, and he has his slow on the shield, which is his W, and of course the ultimate, which traps everyone, all the enemies, into a little circled area. So because of this he can obviously gank successfully. So he just goes onto a lane, puts down his E, which is his slow, and then, as I've said before, EQ combo, and then ult if needed. And in addition to that, he is extremely helpful in teamfights. This is because of his ult, obviously, the slow off of his W, sorry, and he has the EQ combo, which can knock the enemies up. In addition to that, he's also got the passive off of his E, which can give teammates extra armor and attack speed. This can come in very handy in teamfights. On top of that, he can escape easily because of the Randuin's Omen that I advise, and the Shirelia's Reverie, if you decide to get that. And obviously his slow on is W. He also has high armor because of the way you build him, and of course because of the passive off of his flag. And in addition to that, he can finally lower the enemy's armor because of his Q. So now going on to his cons. He is unfortunately extremely mana dependent, especially at the beginning to mid game, but you don't have to particularly spam out all of his abilities, but then you'll just be less efficient. But it all depends on who's mid lane, I mean if they need the blue buff or not. And in addition to that, he does end up with a lot of assists, which personally I don't really mind, but I know that a lot of people play jungler so that they can go into a lane and then just completely own it, and then they get the kill, and then they get fed, and they can have a lot of fun. But Jarvan's more a type of character that can get a few kills, yeah, sure, granted, but you mainly end up with games where you have, like, I don't know, 3 to 15, something like that, so a lot of assists.
Spill to the face for the Marcia.